Do not let your hearts be troubled. My friends, I must confess, of all the exhortations and the commands that the Lord gives us in the Gospels, this is the one for which, at times in my own life, I have had great difficulty following. Perhaps it's just part of my character, because I am, one would call, a worrier. I tend to become very much occupied and worried, and at times even anxious of the things around. That comes, I think, from my mom and dad. My mom was always a worrier of things in the family, and my father of the affairs that would keep us safe and secure. And I think I'm not the only one who tends to worry and become anxious of the circumstances or things around us. Perhaps you have found yourself in the same place. And I think it's fair to say, given the terrible circumstances we now live under, that all of us are worried about an unknown and undefined future. Many worried about employment, where money will come to pay next month's bills, this week's bills. Worried about our health, about our loved ones, especially the elderly, whom we love dearly, and for what the new normal will be, for there is no one who knows what it will look like. And the unknown causes many of us, myself included, to have hearts that are troubled. So allow me to ask, how do we do what the Lord asks of us? How can we untrouble our hearts? Let me say clearly, the Lord never asks that which we cannot do. He always asks that which we can do with His grace. So this is not a goal beyond our reach. And yet, reflecting on how to untrouble our hearts, perhaps the answer is staring us right in the face. For when Jesus is asked, which is the way to the Father, and He says, I am the way and the truth and the life, perhaps He is the answer to the question. How? Allow me to be brutally honest. In my own life, when I reflect on the times that I have been, to a lesser or greater extent, consumed with worry and even anxiety, as I look at those episodes in my life, I can recognize how often I was wrapped up in the things that I wanted, in the issues in my own mind, losing control of the affairs of my life that I wanted to control, not being able to give what I thought was best to those around us, or me, or those whom I loved. So, in many ways, the word that keeps coming up is me and I and me. Not out of malice, but simply because I was getting in my own way. Jesus says, I am the way. I am the path. I am the one who loves you more than you love yourself. I'm the one who has the answers to the questions that vex you. I am the one who can see the end of the journey while you cannot. And Jesus in His ministry, knowing all of that, did not occupy Himself with His own agenda or His own desires or His own plans, for it was all about the Father and trusting in Him. Rather, Jesus' ministry, Jesus' way, was not to spend time on what I want, but what my neighbor needs. And His entire ministry was directed to those around Him, to feed them, to clothe them, to teach them, to heal them, to walk with them, to laugh with them, to cry with them, to spend time with them. That's Jesus' way. And what I like to suggest, my friends, for you and for myself, is that the times we are consumed as this time could very well be one when we are worried or anxious. Perhaps the answer is to imitate our Lord. And as best we can, when we feel consumed, to look elsewhere into the faces of those around us, to involve and busy ourselves with their needs and their concerns, or simply to spend time with them, to focus our attention away with whatever best intentions we have on the things we think, we desire, we would like, we want to control, and allow them to take the lead. For Jesus is the way to peace. And by following his example, what we will discover is that same gift. Do not let your hearts be troubled. How do we do that? Perhaps, my friends, the answer is staring you and me in the face, in the very faces of the people with whom we share our life. Let us look at them right now and see in them the invitation of Christ to give ourselves to them. And perhaps that's the way to have a truly untroubled